Hi there, I'm Matt from the Nil Coalescing team, and today I'm going to be taking a quick look at how we will be adopting the new glass UI effects within our app Strolly. We built Strolly so that we could find new looping walks within our local area. As you can see within the app here, multiple of our UI elements consist of material effects on top of the map. So these might be a great candidate for adopting the new glass effects. However, these are all semi-custom components, so it's going to be a little bit of work to get this all working nicely. So let's jump right in. Opening our Strolly project with the latest beta version of Xcode, we're going to need to update our recommended settings. That completed, we'll now take a look at our minimum deployment target. Just for simplicity today, we're going to bump that to 26 so that we don't have to fill our code with conditional paths depending on the destination. Running the application, we're going to now be looking for issues, clear, obvious problems. The first one that screams out to me is our tip at the top. While we can see the title, we cannot see the subtitle. Looks like the prompt for location works fine. The UI rendered on top of the map here clearly also has an issue. We can see, while we get a nice material effect, it's not getting the new glass visuals. So we're going to need to adapt that. Checking through other elements of the app, the path is working fine and our card tiles are switching and the animation seems to be working perfectly. So at least that's not broken. Opening our menu, the menu content does appear to have adopted the new style, but our sheets have not. They're going to need some work. We're going to be adopting this new glass effect API for our custom views. This allows us to set the material, the shape, and conditionally control whether or not it's active. We're always going to have it active for our case. So first thing, we're going to look at fixing that tip that was at the top of the launch screen. So we're just going to navigate through our content view, come down past, we've got our map, and on top of the map, we've got our various overlays. We come into our origin select, which is the first screen we show. Here we can see our tip view. We're using TipKit here. We have a custom style. So first we just remove the background from the tip. And we can see, now we can see the text, but it hasn't yet adopted our glass material. So let's get rid of that shadow. And if we pop into our custom style, we can see here, well, let's just add the glass material into the custom style, the glass effect in here. So this way it'll apply to all tips that use this custom style. And Xcode autocomplete is a little bit horrible. We're going to use a regular material here, but we want it to not be interactive because it's not something you actually touch. It's just a visual sort of overlay. And yes, we want to force that to have a nice rounded rectangle where we control the corner radius to give us a uniform feel. 16 feels clean with a continuous corner. Now if we run that again, we're going to see the output. It's not looking quite right. It's almost as if we've put the glass effect, but there's still something else behind the glass. So let's pop back here. And I remember there was a modifier which allows us to modify the background of a tip. And if we just make sure that's clear, so we don't have a background behind the glass and we just the raw glass. Now that looks much better. You can see how the color of the map is flowing through the tip view there and diffracting and blurring correctly. So we need to just adopt our other places which are using the tip to follow the same pattern. So here we're going to replace the background with a clear and remove any shadow. And that should work perfectly. So if we're just going to run that and we can have a look there. So this tip shows up when we are flagging locations. As we can see here, the tip looks great. These are flagging bad paths that we want to avoid in the future. Switching back, we're now going to have a little look at those sheets. We're just going to make sure, first thing, we're going to go through all of our sheets that we display in the application. We're going to remove any custom presentation backgrounds because if we have a custom presentation background, we are not going to see the glass effect that we want to see within our sheets. Okay, that looks like we've removed all of the custom backgrounds, which is great. The next thing we need to consider is the corner radius. With the new OS, if we are not setting a corner radius, the sheet will match the radius of the bottom of the screen. So we can see now with our updates, this sheet is now gorgeously glassy and the radius matches the curvature of the display, as does our setting sheet. Now, because our setting sheet is a full screen sheet, we don't get the glass effect, but that is correct. And we can check in our other sheets here as well, also lovely and glassy, which is perfect. So now we're just going to take a little look at the other overlays that we have in the application. In particular, you'll notice one thing we need to start looking at is our launch screen and ensuring it really looks good, because that's very important. Focusing here on this current location button. This is a button provided by Core Location, so we have limited styling abilities of the button itself. We can see we've got a tint of pink here with a headline font. We've set a custom corner radius and we've got a shadow. So we're just going to get rid of that shadow because we're going to be placing a little bit of glass material on this button, but we can't affect the style. So if we place our glass material right here directly onto the button with a regular, and it says, let's go with non-interactive for now, just to have a look at what we get. It doesn't really appear to have made any change. What about if we could create a pedestal which the button sits on, and the pedestal is glassy? Now, the location button has a little bit of a landing pedestal to sit upon. The next item we need to look at is when you click on that button, we start to search for new paths. While searching for them, we display a little bit of text that cycles through various explanations, giving an indication of progress as we search for possible routes in your area. It was using a material background. We're now just going to switch that out for a glass background on this. And of course, non-interactive, as you cannot interact with these. So as we come in here, we can see that at the top was already showing there, finding more paths. As we open up and we change our start location, we can see, and this is this gorgeous glass material on the searching for paths UI there, blending through the color from the map behind it. So this view is looking great. We can now move on to the menu buttons that we have at the lower side of the UI. If we're just going to open the app, and we can have a look at them now and then consider where to go from here. If we have a look at our menu buttons, both of these buttons, top and bottom, they're not taking the glass material yet. So we're just going to pop over to those buttons, which will be in the discovery overlay, and we can see our various components here. We've got our settings button there. And as we come back down towards the bottom here, we have our selected walk menu. And in here, this has us a menu within which we have a label and our button. Now, at the moment, we've got a custom button style on that menu, which is our sort of map button style, which provides a material effect, etc. So the simplest solution is to try, we can just replace it with the new glass button style. And if we have a look at how that works, that is not looking right. Almost no effect at all, no background, nothing at all. So something's really wrong there. So let's go back into our menu button style. And if we consider this, maybe we'll actually, like we did with the tip view, we'll place the glass effect within the menu button style. So let's remove the pre-existing background, which is sort of a capsule background here with a shadow and material. And if we just place our glass effect right here, maybe that will work. It should be interactive after all, so we can leave the defaults because it is a button. And well, that looks good, certainly. As we tap it, it looks good. But as we come back, ooh, that was a weird glitch. Sort of got cut off towards the bottom edge. So certainly not the right place to place the glass effect here. So we can just remove this. So we're going to keep our button style without any glass effect, and we're going to place the glass effect after the button here. So this should apply to the whole content. And that can just be as is. And let's hope that works correctly. And that's looking good now. We're suddenly seeing our glass material as we bounce in and we bounce back out, and we're going to set without any weird clipping. But our top settings button, while it works, no longer has any background. Well, that settings button was also using our map button style. So now we've removed this background from the style itself. We're going to need to add that glass back in. So if we have a look at our select walk, which is where we just were, if we move down, we've got the button style itself. We've got our map prompt button and our map action button. The map action button is what's being used for the settings. So here we've got our style. Let's just add in that glass effect as we did before. And while we're at it, we're going to go to our map prompt button. This is used to show errors. And we can add the glass effect in here directly as well. And if we run again, things should now look much better. That's right, now settings has its glassy background, as we can see, diffusing the colors through it. And as we move around, beautiful. And if we trigger network error, we can see our warning. Our prompt button also shows up with a gorgeous glassy background. And that animates to fill the size of the button as it shrinks and to just have a minimized warning. And if we tap on that, it'll expand again. So with everything working now, we're just going to take a look at our tiles at the bottom here. So at the moment, these are using a material effect with a green, semi-transparent green sort of tint behind them. And we want to change that to be using the modern glass. Now, while technically the design specification said we shouldn't have glass layering on top of each other, I think in this example, we can give it a try with layered sheets of glass on top of each other. So if we have a look through here into our path container, we have our card stack view. Within here, we have the path card. So this is the card. And here you can see our Z stack. At the bottom of the Z stack, we've got our thin material and we've got our little overlay of green opacity. So we're just going to nuke that because we're not going to be using those anymore. Now, the glass effect isn't something you just apply within a Z stack. You apply it to a view. So we're not going to be putting it in the Z stack. We'll just try putting it down below here. So we look through, we've got our shadow. Let's get rid of that. We're not going to need that anymore. And we can place our glass effect here just after the frame. So we've got a consistent idea of the size of everything with a regular. And let's go on with an interactive for now, but we'll probably have to change that later just to have an idea. For now, let's just quickly test with a rectangle. That did not work. The animation seems broken and the size is completely off. It also seems to have moved some of them into the wrong place. Yeah, that's broken everything completely. So that does not seem to be the right place to place our glass material. Well, let's just move that down, maybe right at the bottom here. And there's the context menu there. Let's remove that. We'll come back to that maybe in a future episode on what we're going to do about the context menu. Let's just have the glass effect right at the bottom here and see how that is after all of our content shapes. That is no better. Just as broken as before. That is brilliant. Really puts the cards in the wrong place. Gestures are broken. Yeah, just what we asked for. Let's make sure it's not interactive because suddenly these sheets probably shouldn't have that high brightness of an interactive glass like a button. You do interact with them, but it's just too much interactive layers on top of each other. But I mean, the effect looks better, but it's still, the size is wrong. Yeah. If we take this and let's put it somewhere else in the hierarchy, and we can have a look at where we're placing these cards. So if we pop into our stack view, card stack view, and we go into our card container, this view manages the positioning of each individual card. And here we apply the rotation and the offset, depending on the current position in the stack and the gesture being applied. So if we just chuck it here, probably won't have any visual effect change, but it might make more sense to place it here as we have more idea about the rotation. There's no change to the positioning or the effect, but one other thing we could do, and while this isn't advised, I'm just going to give it a try. I'm going to put it in the background because I know if I do things inside a background view is not going to affect the layout of the primary view. So this hopefully will mean the cards at least will be positioned in the right place, even if the effect is broken. Yes, okay, now at least all of our map paths, the red paths on our cards are in the right place. The animation is broken there, which is fun, but our cards are stacked correctly. So, but the size was wrong, very wrong. But we can control the shape that is used by the glass effect. And we can even size that shape to our explicit frame, because we know the size of these cards. It's a fixed size. Okay, well, the size is correct now, but wow, the background is no longer lining up, and it's sort of getting even more out of alignment as we move the cards. It's almost as if the anchor point of that background isn't lining up with the anchor point of the cards. So we can place an anchor when we set a size on a shape. Maybe that will help, since we are, and make sure, just for consistency, our rotation is also using the center. I believe it is by default anyway, but just for consistency. Down here, and let's try that again. That's much better now. We've now got cards, the backgrounds are all lined up on our views, and we've got a gorgeous stroke there. We do have a little bit of a gesture issue for the front card. I'll have a look at that in a moment. But otherwise, it's looking pretty good. Let's make sure we have a nice rounded rectangle shape for our background, and then we can come back to our gesture issues. With a 16-point corner radius on that background, that should look gorgeous. Yeah, that's lovely. Nice corner radius there. You can see how it sort of bends the materials and even bends through each other, and we're not getting any glitches on that. But previously we did have a little bit of a green tint. Let's see if we can bring that color tint back there. So if we can tint the material here with a color, and let's just chuck in a green color there. It's probably going to be quite strong. Oh wow, yeah, that's very green. That's a very green tint. So let's put in 0.2 opacity just to make things a little bit cleaner. Oh, much better, much better. We've got a little bit of a green glass going there, but it's still very glassy. You can see through. We can even see the sort of red from the previous tiles behind. So coming back here, let's see if we can fix that front frame. So we're back to our path card here. And one thing I will note is while we've got a content shape for accessibility and we've got a content shape for the context menu preview, we don't have a content shape for interaction. We're not doing a context menu anymore, so we can get rid of that. Let's just make sure we get our content shape for interaction added. And this will be a rounded rect like everything else. Probably should be 16 because we have set our background to be rounded rect 16, so make sure accessibility is also using the same radius across the board. Oh, but we have this mask here. We probably don't need the mask anymore because we don't have a background set inside the VStack, so we shouldn't really need to be masking things out anymore. Yeah, now we can interact with our foreground shape there. That is gorgeous. Okay, this is looking great. So while we've placed lots of glass material effects down, it's best to actually place these all inside a single glass container so that we get improved performance and the shapes can morph together as we add and remove buttons from the view. So we're now just going to take a glass container and wrap all of our overlays in a glass container, since all of our overlays contain glass materials, into this glass effects container, and we can just chuck all of our overlays into that. Should work great. Well, let's hope. Seems to have morphed together all of the glass effects from our cards. So after all, they are all inside one glass container. They're now all together, also they're no longer aligning correctly, and they glitch out a little bit, which is extra fun, but certainly not what we wanted. So let's take those cards and take them out of the glass effect and put them afterwards. And here we go, our path container, and we're just going to grab that along with, make sure, because we only want to display them when we actually have a start and stop location. So if we just snap them out of there and we put them back in over here, and we can merge that if statement to include our condition, removing our branching there. When we do need to remember to actually remove them from the discovery, otherwise we'll have two sets of cards visible. That'll be embarrassing. So now, all of our glass effects, apart from the cards, are inside the container, and the cards are by themselves. brilliant. So all of our cards now have individual, they're not morphing together, but our other glass effects seem to be working perfectly. As we tap on our settings button, great, that's gorgeous. Our sheets are still working nicely, and our avoidance and our tip view at the top of the avoidance is still working gorgeously, along with our tip view on the start location view with our little glass material behind the button there. Now, when we turn off our networking, a new effect that has appeared, which actually looks rather nice, is as this warning comes in, because it's close to the settings button, it wants to morph in and out of the existing item that's on screen. So you can see here as I'm trying to dismiss the button, it's refusing to dismiss it. Dismisses for a moment and comes back. You can see the background sort of tries to push itself back into the settings. And then now that I've turned back on networking, I can dismiss and it pops back into settings. Beautifully done. Really lovely effect there. In our next episode, we're going to take a look at this custom control that I have here in the settings window. Thank you for watching. You can find more posts and other tips on our website, nilcoalescing.com.